Hey, good afternoon, National Association of Black Journalists membership. How you doing? Brandon Pope here. I'm a reporter and anchor at WCIU TV, and we're here with Aaron Days at Q13 Fox. We're here to talk about building newsroom leaders. This is a webinar about newsroom leadership, something like that everybody really wants to cultivate, but there's not really a textbook on how to do, right? You don't go to journalism school and get lessons on, leadership potential or dealing with newsroom politics or things like that. It's something you kind of learn along the way that you wish somebody would have told you when you get involved in it. Well, now we're providing a resource here at NABJ where we're able to do that. Got this idea talking to Dorothy Tucker, current VP broadcast for National Association of Black Journalists. I've heard from other Black newsroom leaders that they wish there was more stuff like this to help develop and enrich and get those skills. And so this is a effort to kind of start that and get that going here. So with me today, Aaron Day, Q13 Fox supervising producer. This guy is really doing a lot of work in trying to hone leadership skills, but also in teaching leaders, building leaders. And so I'll let him take it away and tell you a little bit about himself.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. Thanks, everybody, for logging in. I really appreciate this opportunity to share my thoughts on leadership. A lot of people ask me how I got into this, and I'll give you the short version. My interest in newsroom leadership started during the recession around 2008, 2007. And so I witnessed, I experienced, I talked to people who experienced, low morale, turnover, reassignments. And at that point, I started to wonder what the link was between those types of emotions that people felt and leadership. And so for the past 8 years, I've been studying leadership philosophies, and I wanted to take a theoretical approach to leadership in newsrooms. And so I got my master's, I got my PhD a couple of years ago, and ever since then I've been, training and doing workshops in leadership. And so, here I am wanting to share what the literature says and what my research says. For my dissertation, I studied change in newsrooms. I wanted to learn why people resisted change and what leaders could do to overcome that resistance. And so, relationships matter in newsrooms, leadership matters in newsrooms. In fact, effective leadership is a predictor of job satisfaction. People feel happier in the workplace, in the newsroom, when they have effective leaders in the building. And so, that's kind of how I got into this. It's been nonstop for me for the past few years. I still produce, I still work in the business, I work mornings. So not only am I seeing and kind of hearing stories, I'm also connecting that to what the research says. And so I have a lot to share today. I might not get to all of it, but my intent today is just to get people to think about leadership and their own behaviors, how to recognize effective leadership in their newsrooms, and then just go from there.
Very good. Aaron, you may have already hit on this, but I think it's really important we talk about why this topic is something that's so important. So in your opinion, why does newsroom leadership matter?
Well, I think it matters because, like I said earlier, the research shows that the better relationships you have with your manager, the more productive you are and the more satisfied you are with your job. I mean, say you're grumpy or you're frustrated at work, and you turn a story or you write a VO or you edit a package. Just imagine how much better that outcome would be if you were in a healthy relationship. And so, I think it matters because, we're in an industry that's constantly changing, and, we're expected to learn new skills and things like that. So there's a huge demand to do well. And so we want to make sure that we're happy and productive, and the leadership that we give and receive has a lot to do with that.
No doubt. And I think it's important also to note that leadership is more than just the title. You know, you don't have to be the news director to be a leader in the newsroom. You don't have to be an anchor to be a leader in the newsroom. I think anyone can step up and do that. Would you agree?
I would agree. Yeah. Power and influence doesn't come from titles. And I think people need to understand that you don't have to have a title. You don't have to be on a major newscast. You don't have to be a veteran in the business to have power and influence. And so, I tell people, understand what type of power you have. There's legitimate power, and then there's position power. So legitimate power, basically, a news director or an executive producer has legitimate power because they have that title, that role. I think people need to take inventory of their own personal power, meaning, do you have power based on your expertise? Do you have experience based on the power based on the relationships you have? So yeah, I mean, titles are great. We should strive to move up and promote ourselves, but until that happens, there's a lot you can do and you don't even realize it.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. It reminds me of a time when I was working in South Bend, Indiana. I wasn't really thinking about it, but there was a dispute between two coworkers, two fellow MMJ reporters, and I did my best to try to diffuse it because I knew both of them, and I tried to make sure it was, didn't escalate any more than it needed to, and it was getting pretty chippy. And so later on, the news director pulled me aside and said, "That was good leadership you showed there. You're really showing some newsroom leadership." And so I think that kind of speaks to, like, yeah, it kind of had like the low totem pole position, but that was a small opportunity there to kind of show something there. So good question for you as we jump into this topic, Aaron, is what makes a good newsroom leader?
Good question. I'm going to share my screen here because I think this is really going to be helpful for people. So just stand by.
Cool.
While I share my screen. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Great. So I'm just going to go through a couple of slides here. So to me, a good newsroom leader has a good balance of task-oriented style and relationships. The person who focuses on tasks, they want to achieve, right? Work is where they find meaning. They want to reach a goal, right? They want good ratings. They want more viewers. They want people to click on the website. They want all those types of goals. And so the relationship style is more about connecting with people. And these leaders really make it a priority to understand the people that work for them or in the newsroom. And so if you look at this graph here, we want to try to be in the middle as leaders. If all you focus on are tasks and the goals and, then, and you don't give attention to the relationships, that's going to be a challenge for you as a leader, in my opinion. So I think good leaders find the balance between, yeah, we want to get people to watch. Yes, we want to do good journalism. We want to tell good stories. We want to we want to do some enterprise reporting. The book is coming up. We want to, all this other stuff. But how are you connecting with people? And so, again, leaders who focus on tasks, they're really stressed on the production, the technical aspects. They're really focused on how the job is going to get done. And then relationships, again, they have concern for people. They look at behaviors and they show respect and trust and things like that. So, there are many ways to be a good leader, but I think, again, if I go back here, I think if we can find that balance between growing the audience, telling good stories, but also caring about our relationships. That goes a long way.
Yeah, definitely, no doubt. Very good information right there, Aaron. And you're obviously you've exemplified good leadership yourself. I'm curious to know how you cultivated those skills and how others can cultivate these leadership skills.
Well, look, I mean, we don't always get to choose who we work for, right?
Yeah,
We don't always get to choose our managers, right? I mean, yeah, I mean, some people hire us and they move on. Or, we'll get hired by a news director and then we end up having to report to the morning EP or the dayside EP. So, I mean, there's a lot of that going on. And so how I cultivate leadership for me, and I think for others, is to learn how to lead yourself first. I think if you understand who you are, what you're good at, where your source of power comes from, how do you influence people, what are your values, I think that's how you can cultivate leadership. Because if you look, I think managers are so busy, right? I don't think you should expect them to lead you all the way, right? It's a give and take type of relationship. So I think you have to learn to lead yourself because, that person's not always going to be there to lead you. I think, I've been doing this almost 20 years as a producer, and I've had many news directors, I've had a bunch of VPs, and some relationships were good, some were just okay. I've seen some bad relationships, and wherever I could fill in that gap myself, I tried to do it, right? So if I didn't have any legitimate power because I wasn't a manager, I realized that, okay, I have good relationships with people. So maybe I can cultivate my leadership skills that way by becoming more influential and using charisma and, being a good communicator and things like that. So, so if you could just learn yourself and lead yourself, I think that will help.
yeah. That's being able to lead yourself is huge. And you mentioned there you can't always pick who your leaders are. How do you address bad leadership?
Well, this is tricky.
Mm.
Sometimes you can't because it's kind of hard to provide that type of I don't want to say criticism, but you can't go to a manager and say, "Oh, I don't like the way you're leading me. I have a problem with that." That's a very difficult conversation to have. Look, I would suggest you just simply understand what's happening around you. You have to know what. So I want to show an example of what I see happening quite often in newsrooms. And so if you look at this graph, most managers have their in and their out groups, right? And so, right, so you notice that there are reporters and producers. There's right the clicks that we see. You have the leader in the box, and then you have the in group, then you have the out group. And I think when it comes to leadership, you need to understand the people around you and what's going on. So, bad leadership, I think you need to study your newsroom. I don't think we should just become students of telling good stories in journalism. I think we need to be good students of our newsroom and how they operate, right? Who's in the in group, who's in the out group. I've been a part of the out group. I've witnessed people getting access to information, people getting better assignments. I've witnessed, all kinds of stuff. And I've been part of the in group too. I've been part of both, actually. I've experienced the in group, I've experienced the out group. But so leaders typically put people in one of these two categories, not because you're bad at your job, they just maybe connect with other people better than you. And so I wouldn't look at leadership as being bad necessarily. I would just look at it as, what can I do to understand what's going on? In other words, what are the politics at play in the newsroom? Because they are very political places. They are very, they can be very cliquey and cliquish places. And so look at that if you can. This is called by the way, this is called the leader-member exchange theory. This is one of the theoretical approaches to leadership that I really like, that I think applies to newsrooms, because it's very easy for someone to feel left out in a newsroom, right? People you could be there 10 years, 20 years, and somebody new comes in and suddenly they're given a special assignment, or, you didn't get the days off you wanted, but they got the days off. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going on. So that's what I think needs to happen.
Yeah, for sure. You bring up some good points there. I want to remind people they can chime in with your questions. We've already got one here that I think we will look at here. The question it's from Sarah Wilson. She's a current WESH2 intern and a senior at BCU. She says, how do you exemplify good leadership skills in the newsroom as an intern? This is really interesting, because interns have a role in this too.
Yeah, I mean, look, an intern is someone who doesn't have legitimate power, right? Or position power. So if I'm an intern in a newsroom, I'm going to probably use my expertise. Is there a topic that you care a lot about? Is there a topic that the newsroom is not covering, or can you add something to the coverage or the newsroom? So what is your expertise? So I would do that. Can you find someone in the newsroom who you can really connect and bond with, maybe build that relationship? So I would focus on relationships as an intern. When I first started this business, I would befriend, I would find someone in the newsroom who I could call a friend, right? I would try to find someone who understood me and who I connected with, and build those relationships. And so I think for an intern, you have to know what's important to that newsroom, and you have to know what that newsroom thrives on. Do they thrive on relationships or tasks? Is it driven by producers, writers, managers, and go to those groups?
Yeah, 100%. You got to know your role. I think it's good you point out that different newsrooms kind of are different in the way they handle this. I know I was in some newsrooms where I interned. They gave me more responsibility because I was a paid intern than maybe one that was an unpaid internship, right? So I remember one of the internships I had was in Indianapolis. And the first day they had me at the assignment desk, and they had some major breaking news. And that's a large amount of responsibility to handle the assignment desk, calling and taking in calls and trying to, operate that as a first time for an intern. But you're going to have moments like that as an intern where you can step up, shine, show what you can do. And in that sense, be looked to as sort of a leader or someone that can be depended on for later assignments, right? Or even little things like cutting a VO, or being the person that's a good writer. Maybe this anchor knows that you're always a pretty good writer, so they know that you're a go-to person to do this quick, breaking update that they have coming in, something like that. Little opportunities like that are always probably the best way to really show your skill and let that shine. So very good question there. That was a really good one. So something else we can talk about here is dealing with leadership change. There's revolving doors. Yeah. People come in, they come out, and sometimes things get better. Sometimes they get worse when a new official leader steps in. So how do you deal with change in leadership in the newsroom?
Yeah, this is a tough one too because managers come and go. I mean, some are there
Hmm.
for a long time, some are there, just a couple years, 3 years or whatever. But leadership change, I think you probably need to um, uh, brace for it because it's in the inevitable. I think you also need to get to know the new leader who's coming in. So, what is important to that person? What do they care about? How do they like to communicate? Again, go back to the slide that I showed earlier: task versus relationships.
Hmm.
Do they care more about tasks? Do they care about relationships? Who's in their in group and who's in their out group? Um, like for me, I could care less what the in groups and the out groups look like. I think what's more important is what is your own personal relationship with your manager or with your leader. What does that look like? Um, I want to go back. I want to go back to. I have some questions that people should probably um, ask themselves
Mm.
uh, when they are experiencing new leadership. So I'm going to share my screen one more time here, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. All right, here we go. Here are some questions to ask that are really important. Do you know where you stand with him or her? Um, do you know how satisfied your manager is with you? How well does he or she understand your job problems and needs? Does that person recognize your potential? Um, regardless of how much formal authority he or she has built, what are the chances that he or she would use his or her power to help you? Um, there are some other, if I can get to the next one. Oh, there we go. I have enough confidence in him or her that I would defend and justify their decision. So these are just some questions to ask yourself when it comes to new leadership, a new leadership change. Most of the time when new leadership comes in, we try to hide, we try to lay low,
Yeah.
right? Because we don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
We don't know if I'm going to be moved for a different show, my schedule's going to change, something's going to be taken away from me. So we usually lay low and hide when new leadership happens. But and look, and I get it. I've been there, right? You try to just do your job and go home. You just try to fly under the radar. But if you can, you want to get to know these people. You want to go in and have these questions, and you want to learn, where do you stand? What's important to that person? Because it goes both ways. Newsroom leaders have a very tough job to do. There's a lot on their plate. So I think it's important for both sides to learn about each other. However, I do think the leader has the bigger responsibility to initiate and initiate that relationship.
Definitely, definitely. There was a question earlier. I think it was about the slides and being available. This will be available on NABJ's website for you to check later. Lots of good nuggets and information here about newsroom leadership. That's the topic today with Aaron Day, supervising producer over at Q13 in Seattle, Washington. Aaron, is there anyone that you look to as a leader or model your leadership style afterward?
As far as in the business or just overall?
Both. I think both. I think leadership is kind of transferable between professions, right? Like John Wooden, legendary basketball coach. You can learn a lot from him. He said excellence is a habit. Something I kind of take with me all the time. So, anyone you kind of look to?
Yeah, I mean, I had an executive producer not too long ago who he was just very honest. He was very open. Um, he allowed me to be myself. I think there was a no judgment zone with him. I was able to speak freely and openly. So I think for me, I think it's important to allow people to speak their mind and say what's on their mind without feeling like they're going to get in trouble for it. right? If you want to know, well, why the heck do we do this story, or why are we making this change, or I don't think we should be doing this. I mean, those are the type of conversations I think people should be allowed to have, and he allowed me to be that person, and he told me, he was open and honest with what he knew and what he didn't know as a manager. And so I think you guys let people be themselves and speak their mind. I think humility is really important too, and trust people. I think I trust people. I think some managers, and not all of them, of course, but they set people up to fail in some ways. And they do that by what's called the set up to fail syndrome. I'm not sure if you've heard of that.
No.
Or anyone else. It's called the set up to fail syndrome. And it's an actual thing that happens quite a bit in newsrooms. I can show it to you. Want to see it?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, let's see.
I got a whole bunch of stuff. So,
all the slides.
I got all the slides. So here's the setup to fail syndrome. I'm going to go through this real quick. So basically, this is a dynamic that leaders reinforce when they perceive employees to be mediocre or weak, right? So it's a perception, right? So once leaders have this perception that you're not a good performer, they behave in a way that allows you to reinforce their perceptions, right? And then from there, it can lead to reassignments or leaving the organization. It starts pretty much with an early mistake or a blunder, right? So, say you're an editor and, you cut the wrong VO for a story, right? Or you cut the wrong soundbite by mistake, right? It happens, right? Stuff happens. Or you're a director and you rolled the wrong package and it was a really important piece that everybody was waiting for. And so it usually starts with a mistake or a blunder. And from there, the manager starts to question your performance, right?
Yeah.
And then they start to micromanage, right? Right. Just because you made one mistake in your story, they start to really check in with you more, and they start to ask you questions. And so, and now you're just saying to yourself, no, wow, like I'm starting to doubt myself as a producer or as an editor or as a reporter, right? So your confidence is reduced because of the micromanaging. And so you kind of stop giving your best. You avoid making decisions, right? You don't speak up in the editorial meetings anymore because you think you're not going to have the right answers. And so once you're micromanaged, what do you think happens? As a employee who's being micromanaged, what do you think happens because of that?
You naturally get more annoyed, for sure.
You get more annoyed, you start making more mistakes.
Yeah.
Right? You start making even more mistakes.
Pressure, yeah.
You're nervous, right? You're nervous. You're kind of walking on eggshells. And so once those mistakes happen again, the manager says, oh, well, I guess I was right. They aren't a good performer, or they're not a good writer, or they're not a good editor, right? Or they're not a good anchor, or whatever the case may be. But that's not really true. The only reason why your perceptions are confirmed is because you started micromanaging after one mistake. And so, I think this process of how people are set up to fail happens a whole lot in television. I mean, look, mistakes are not okay. I'm not saying, you should not address issues or low performers. But I just think we have to be careful on how we do it. It's how we do it that I think matters the most, because you don't want people to question their performance. You don't want people to stop offering information, right? Avoiding
sure.
contact with you. I mean, I'll be very honest. I've lost sleep because of a mistake I made and the perception that people had of me after that mistake, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the last thing you want to do is take your frustration home with you, and you're tossing and turning at night. You're getting all hot and sweaty because you have that gut feeling in your stomach of what happened at work that day. And so I just think we can't set people up to fail by confirming our perceptions by micromanaging. So, and I'll get this slide out to people as well. I know there may be some more questions, so I'll stop.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, once again, we'll take all your questions as you bring them in. We have a question here that says, "One of the leaders in my newsroom is old enough to be my child. She is rude and disrespectful, not just to me, but most people on the team. As a person who has held management roles in the past, how do you suggest I respectfully stand firm with my younger leader?" What do you think about this one, Aaron?
Yeah, I see the comment here. So this person, the manager is a young person, and young, rude, disrespectful.
Yeah, they get a little bit too spicy in their britches.
Yeah, no, I have a very low tolerance for rude and disrespectful leadership. You know, me and rude leaders don't get along too well. Look, I don't know if this person, maybe there's a one-on-one conversation you can have with this person. I've experienced that before, and I flatly told the person, I said, look, I don't perform well when you talk to me that way. I care about the shows, I care about doing a good job, but maybe can you clear up what you said? Help me understand your tone. I mean, before assuming that this person is being disrespectful or rude, maybe just simply ask for your own confirmation. Look, some people talk a certain way, and we could really jump to conclusions about their intent. The person could be rude. The person may just, not know how to talk the right way, and so they could simply just need help. I think communication is a really important issue in newsrooms. Everyone likes to be addressed in a different way, and people take things differently, and so look, if disrespect is the issue, you need to just have that one-on-one conversation with that person and tie it back to your performance. Don't make it personal. Maybe you tie it back to, we're all trying to achieve the same thing, and this is not helping me reach those goals. And so maybe try to separate the person from the problem if you can. It's not always easy, but that's something you might want to try.
Yeah. Very good response there. That's a good advice there. Kind of, like you said, tie it to your performance. Don't make it personal in a sense. See what other questions we have here. Just in the chat. We have Erica Wilson. Erica says, can you talk about the importance of having Black, brown managers and leaders in the newsroom? Obviously, Aaron, this is something that is super important to the mission of NABJ and something we push for heavily. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, from a storytelling perspective, is really important, obviously, because we want those different perspectives, we want those different views. We see things from a different lens, and so from that perspective, it's extremely important. I also think that because it's really difficult for a lot of Black men and women to become managers, I think we have to just find our own leadership lane. You know how people say stay in your lane?
Mm-hmm.
I think we have to find our own leadership lane because we may not have position power, right? If you're a Black person in a newsroom and you're not in management, but you want to have a voice, again, go back to what we said earlier about, what are the different ways I can use my power and my influence to make my voice heard during the editorial meetings, in the control room, with different stories that we're covering, breaking news, things like that. I think for the first 10 years, I would say over first 10 years of my career, I wasn't in a leadership position, or, I didn't have a title of manager.
Right.
And I was okay with that. I was okay with that because I knew that I had influence and power in other areas. I knew that I could connect with people. I knew that I knew about certain communities more than other people did. I knew about certain issues more than other people did. And so if you have that expertise, or if you have that type of influence or power, I would say use that. But it's really important. It's really important. And we have to find our way to have a voice until, those numbers get better for us.
Definitely. That's spot on. We want better numbers for sure.
Can I respond to Tamika real quick? She says,
I see one there about
this is why 25-year-olds shouldn't be in management roles so early. Look, some people may not be ready for management positions. I certainly agree with that. But they don't know any better. I mean, so it's not really their fault that they're in that position. Maybe they were tapped. If they applied, if they got the promotion, then I guess that's the situation they're in. I think you could teach that person something about leadership and management. I mean, this person sounds like they're still learning their way, but is there a way that you can learn from each other? I would suggest using this relationship to add your own input to this person on how to lead people and what works for you and others. So if there's a way to make it a reciprocal or, a transformational type relationship, I would try and do that. I like that, Tamika. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. And once again, everyone, bring in your questions. We're having a great conversation here about newsroom leadership, what makes a good newsroom leader, and how to cultivate those skills. Tamika, great questions there. Thank you for your input as well. Something else we have here from Sarah again. Want to circle back on her, the intern over at WESH2. She's asking, how do you contribute without overstepping boundaries? She says an example for her as an intern, going out on a story with a reporter that you really care about, but the reporter may not feel that way. You may see a strategy they should use as opposed to their own when telling the story. Is there a place where the intern can, give advise the reporter in a sense, or what's the line there?
Well, I don't know if I would go as far as telling a reporter how to do their job if you don't have that kind of relationship with that person. I think use it as a learning experience first. Then, if you increase the frequency of those going out, those experiences, then you may be able to offer your suggestions. Again, it's all about connecting with people. People will be more likely to receive criticism, ideas, suggestions if they know you. So I would contribute, cautiously early on.
Hmm.
But certainly, you know, you should at some point. I would just be careful not to do it too soon. Because the example here says that the reporter may not feel the same way. So you want to have that confirmation first that the reporter feels the same way about you that you feel about her before you go that far.
Yeah, definitely. We have another question here from Demi Vaughn. Demi says she's asking, what is the best way to respond to people who are trying to sabotage your leadership? And Demi is a senior at Ball State. Okay, chirp, chirp. That's my alma mater right there. Great question there. So the best way to respond to people who are trying to sabotage your leadership, is that a thing that happens?
Oh yeah, there are plenty of haters in the newsroom.
I
Newsrooms
know
are
that's
full.
right.
Newsrooms are full of haters. You know, they just won't tell you to your face.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no, there are some good newsrooms out there. Every newsroom has issues. No newsroom is perfect. So yeah, there could be people who are trying to sabotage your leadership. Look, I I think that you make note of what's going on. I think you align yourself with the right people. Um, and then don't be afraid of conflict. I mean, I think there's healthy conflict. There's a such thing as healthy dissent. There's a way to disagree productively with someone and not leave feeling like, oh my God, there's drama now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, you know, I think if you feel someone's trying to sabotage your leadership, make sure you have a good case to make that argument. And I think you bring it to the person privately. I'm not a big fan of telling on people or being the tattletale. I'm not really big on that. I think if you have an issue with someone, you should perhaps deal with it directly first, and
Mm-hmm.
then if you need support, then you could maybe ask for some support if you're not getting anywhere. But sabotage is a pretty strong word. It's a pretty strong accusation. So I would just recommend you have plenty of examples, deal with it head on, and go from there.
Yeah. That's a pretty good answer there. Good question from Demi, because it's something that comes up that people do have to deal with, and I'm sure Demi can attest. Student media is a training ground for that. I'm sure, especially at Ball State University, pretty competitive journalism school there. Um, Aaron, one thing I was wondering as we were talking, I feel like we all have a role to play in establishing a newsroom culture where we don't have like a set up to fail situation, right? So how do we how do we, whether we are the newsroom leader, whether we are responding to newsroom leadership, how do we contribute to a positive newsroom culture? What makes someone create a positive newsroom culture in a sense?
You know, I think a positive newsroom culture involves having everybody sharing a common goal and a common vision, um, allowing people to feel empowered, getting people involved in the decision making, um, building confidence. You know, people are usually motivated when they feel they're involved in the decision making process, the systems and the system changes, the process changes. I don't think people do very well when they're simply told what to do all the time.
Mm,
So I think, the more involved we can get people in to the bigger picture, the better newsroom it will be. And there's something called vertical and horizontal job loading that is really fascinating to me. And this will be the last thing I share, if I can get it up here. Let's see here. Stand by.
Mm-hmm. Take your time, Pastor.
I think I think we need to understand what motivates people and what gets them going. So if we look at this here, you know, um, are we providing work enlargement or work enrichment? Okay, we want to make people's we want work enrichment. We don't want work enlargement for the
Right.
most part, right? So I have some examples here. I think newsroom cultures uh, really focus on horizontal job loading, right? So I think number two is a good example for newsrooms, right? Adding meaningless tasks to an existing one. So, no, if you're an editor or if you're a writer um, and you're just being told to add some small task, that's not going to help your job, right? If you've been washing dishes and then you're just moving to silverware, you're right, that's not helping your job. So I think we want to do vertical job loading. So how can we help people grow? How can we challenge people? How can we give people a voice? How can we empower people? So here are some things I think good newsrooms do is, you know, if you increase the accountability, you know, people feel recognized and responsible, and if you introduce new and difficult tasks, that means they're growing and they're learning. So I think good newsrooms really try to help people grow and learn and not simply keep them in one particular spot. So yeah, I think there's a lot that goes into a positive newsroom. There's a whole lot. It starts at the top though. It starts at the very top.
100%.
They set
100%.
the tone for how people will be treated.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely can attest to that. You know, one thing I think always helps, something I try to do actively when it comes to trying to contribute to newsroom culture, whether it's me as a leader or not. If we're working on a project, or let's say we have a show, I try to I think words of affirmation are important. I think telling people that you appreciate their work is important. Telling them that, you know, you see what they're doing, you see them grinding, you see their effort. If the show was bad, or if you didn't have a great block, or you know, something like that, you just let them know, hey, we're going to work through this. I appreciate you. I value you. Thank you so much for what you do. Especially my photographers. Anytime I put my photographers to a crazy task and I give them a lot of crazy requests, you know, I just make sure to let them know, hey, you're awesome.
Yeah.
And I get a lot more out of that when I'm able to give those words of affirmation and give that reinforcement there. And I think it contributes overall to a team spirit as opposed to everyone kind of working for themselves against each other, right? That's something you don't
Yeah,
want to
you
see.
know, look, I kind of joke about this a lot. I tell people sometimes it feels like you're working in three different newsrooms,
Mm,
right? Because you have your day side
hmm.
folks, you have your morning team, and you have your night side team, and it can feel like you're working in three different newsrooms, but you're in the same building. And so I think what you're saying is really important, right? I mean, because if you're working mornings and you hear about, oh my God, did you hear what happened at night? Or if you're working at night, oh my God, did you hear what happened in the morning?
Hmm.
Um, right? Or you're working in the morning and you're saying to yourself, well, I don't want to go work dayside because I don't like the managers on that. I don't like how things are on the dayside, right? I think it's important for however people are going to be treated, and the appreciation we show needs to be shown across the board. I mean, dayside, nightside, mornings should not be in a battle for appreciation, or they should not be in a battle for resources. You know, I mean, I think, you know, we need to have that culture spread across the entire organization if we can. Um, Yeah, and people love recognition. I mean, we're always told when we're doing something wrong, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you spelled that wrong. Did you confirm that?
Yeah.
Right? Why aren't we there at this story? So it's easy to point that stuff out, but a thank you goes a long way. But I also think too, it's really important. Some people like to be recognized in different ways. You have to understand who's on your team and what type of recognition that they want.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, some people like to be recognized in public. So therefore, give them praise in front of everybody. Do it at the editorial meeting. Do it the next day, right? Oh my God, I loved how we were on that story yesterday. You got good interviews. You got a good soundbite. We were on it, right? Good job, right? Some people like to be recognized in private. So what do? Just when the meeting's over, have that person stick around, or go talk to that person privately and say, hey, you know what? I think you did a great job on that yesterday. Keep it up. Or so I think we have to tailor the recognition based on what makes that person comfortable. Some people don't like all the attention. Some people don't like being in the spotlight. And so, if we could do that, that would be even better. But yeah, I think recognition overall is really important.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Something else, and a reminder, everyone chime in with your comments. We're having a discussion here, so everybody welcome to chime in and give their take and ask questions and join the conversation here. One thing I think that is really relevant to us as a Black journalists, and that I kind of resonated with me, you talked about it earlier, we have different groups, the out group and the in group, right? Mm-hmm. And oftentimes, maybe this is just what I experienced, but oftentimes if you have white leadership, mm-hmm. a lot of times, if you're the only Black reporter or one of the only few Black employees, you may find yourself in the out group. Mm-hmm. And part of that is microaggressions. One, how do you deal with that? And is there a way to go from out to in without just flat out being like, hey, yo, I'm Black. Is it because I'm Black, right?
Well, that's a pretty tough question there. Look,
it's tough. It's tough. Yeah.
If you're in the out group and you're not part of the clique or and you don't want to kiss butt, right? We don't want to do that. No. I think we need to perhaps focus on the one-on-one relationship with our manager instead. Forget what everybody else is doing, right? I could care less if everyone's walking out to lunch together. I don't care if I look on, social media and I see people were hanging out and I wasn't invited. Right? If you walk by the conference room and you see two of your colleagues sitting with your manager having a meeting, you might be wondering, oh God, what is that about? Mm-hmm. Right? I wouldn't really focus on those types of things. I would just really try to really focus on the relationship with that person. Microaggressions are real. I mean, I was a young producer and I wore a hat to work one day. Because I was like, hey, other people wear hats, I mean, I wore a hat. I mean, I've seen producers wear hats. Someone from production was in the newsroom and she said, hey, look at Aaron. He's dressed like a gangster today.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had an LA hat on. I had an LA hat on. 'Cause I'm from California and I had on a hoodie. It was, because it's Seattle, it was cold, probably, it was raining. So I had a hoodie on, mm-hmm. and I wore a hat, and I was just trying to stay warm. I think I was rushing, so I just threw a hat on. I think it took me probably at least 5 years to wear another hat in the newsroom.
I know that's right.
Because I didn't want to come across as a thug. I mean, I shouldn't think that way, but that was the reality of it for me in the newsroom. And so I had a challenge with that for a while. I never really addressed it head on. I didn't know how. I wish I did, but yeah, I mean, being in the out group is difficult. Sometimes you have to just let the in group be the in group.
Mm.
Let them do what they do. It's okay to be an outsider sometimes, right? It's okay. What's more important to you? Doing a good job, learning your skills, or having those types of friendships in the newsroom. Right? You got to ask yourself what's more important for you in your career.
Mm.
Another
Aaron
question.
bringing the realness there. Yeah, we got another question here. Let's see if I can pull it up here. This is from Chelsea Cox. She says, "Hey, do you find extroverted personalities are more valued in the newsroom? Me and my fellow introverts have just as much to contribute, but in my experience, more extroverted people receive more praise. Is this just the nature of the industry?" Ooh, I feel this one because I am an introverted extrovert. I am an extrovert because I have to be as a TV anchor and reporter and to do my job. But really, I really prefer to just keep to myself. So, Aaron, what do you think about that? Introverts
I don't
disadvantaged?
I don't think it matters, to be honest. I don't think extroverts have more value. I've seen introverts and I've talked to them, and I've seen people who are introverts really make a huge difference in what we do and how we perform and how the shows look and all that stuff. So I don't think it matters. I just think the right leader has to allow everyone to be themselves and let what they offer have value, right? So I can't be a leader and think the person who's quiet doesn't have anything to say. Oh, look, I think the person who's the most quiet might have the most to say. So I don't think people need to be extroverts to have more value. I just think it takes a good leader to recognize that everyone is different. Everyone communicates differently. Everyone has something different to offer. And how can you bring that out of them? I think groupthink is a horrible thing in newsrooms, right? We don't want groupthink. We want people to offer ideas and share their thoughts and be and contribute. So I know she says in her experience, more extroverted people receive more praise, but that might be unique to those particular organizations. But I don't think they're more valuable than introverts at all.
Definitely. I think in general, though, there are some skills introverts may have to cultivate. Kind of stepping out of that comfort zone a bit to thrive in the industry. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, look, you can't be an introvert in all situations. I do think
Yeah.
you know when to come out of that shell and when to stay in. But again, you can be an introvert and still be a very effective person and leader in your newsroom. You just have to know when to show yourself, and again, the leader should know who you are and what you bring to the table.
100%. I think something that's important to hit as we are approaching towards the end of our time here. It's important that we get more Black people in newsrooms to be leaders. And so let's say somebody on this call or someone who's going to watch this later, they would like to take on a leadership role, kind of like what you have, Aaron, a supervising producer at Q13 in Seattle. How did you get to where you're at today? And what steps should someone take if they want to get a leadership role in a newsroom?
Well, I got to where I'm at today by first, I think you got to learn the skill that's required to do the job. I think being a Black journalist, you're expected to know the job more than perhaps your white counterpart. So I would recommend first just getting good at whatever it is you want to do, whether it's producing, writing, reporting, anchoring, editing, graphics, directing. Establish your credibility as a good journalist, but simultaneously work on your leadership skills as well. I recommend develop your leadership skills in the background without people really realizing what you're doing.
Mm.
When I'll send these slides over to people, but, again, study your newsroom, study the relationships, recognize when there's a tense situation, right? Do you have the right skills to go solve that issue? Is there a problem you can solve? Try to develop your skills in the background while also becoming a better journalist. But don't tell people what you're doing, because then they'll say, oh, well, you're just trying to, So I would use almost every day as a case study, because every day there's something, right? So take different scenarios, take different incidents that happen, and ask yourself, well, what can I do to solve this or to address it, and give it a try.
Definitely. That's a good way to look at it there. Aaron, I think that's a perfect way to wrap this up here. I don't think we have any more questions from what I'm sitting. Let me check. We might actually. Nope. I think we are clear on questions. But I want to thank Aaron Day, supervising producer at Q13 Fox, for lending his expertise and giving some real talk on a topic that I think needs to be addressed a lot more. That hopefully this is the beginning of starting that conversation and getting more people in the fold here. So thanks a lot to everyone that joined in on this webinar. We got more coming up in the future. How to reach out to us on social media. I'm BPope TV, BPOPE TV on Instagram and Twitter. And Aaron, what about you?
On Instagram, I'm Dr. Day 1999. Twitter, Aaron Michael Day. And then I'm on LinkedIn as well and Facebook. So yeah, I'm everywhere.
Yeah, y'all can find us. We're out here, and we'll be happy to answer more questions as they come up. We're pretty accessible guys. Thanks a lot, guys. Really appreciate you all.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Thank you.